Get ready to dream. Close your eyes, the story is about to begin. Kyle Johnson was in his small office, surrounded by ancient maps and dusty books. His eyes were fixed on a map that looked like it had come straight out of a fairy tale, its worn edges and nearly fading strokes suggesting it belonged to a long-forgotten era. He traced his finger along a line leading to a dark point in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The legend of Atlantis had always fascinated him, and now, with a new expedition on the horizon, adrenaline coursed through his veins. This is our chance, Kyle. The chance to prove that Atlantis really existed, he murmured to himself, feeling a mix of anticipation and anxiety. He looked up upon hearing footsteps and then saw Rebecca Adams enter the door, carrying a stack of books and artifacts that seemed to have come from a museum. "I hope you're not thinking of leaving without me," she said with a mischievous smile, placing the items on the table. Her eyes sparkled with the same intensity of curiosity that had led her to become one of the country's leading archaeologists. These artifacts could be the key to understanding Atlantean culture. "I wouldn't go anywhere without you, Rebecca," Kyle replied, his smile revealing a camaraderie that transcended professional rivalry. "But we can't forget what we're really doing. If Atlantis is real, we need to respect its history. It's not just about discovering it, it's about preserving it." "I agree, but you know that people often ignore that part when fame is at stake," she retorted, the tension between them palpable. "History isn't a commodity to be exploited. It's a legacy we must protect." Kyle stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "What if we find something that could change everything? Something that could benefit humanity? We can't let fear hold us back." Rebecca took a deep breath, realizing that Kyle's passion also drew her in. "I just hope you remember that the true discovery isn't just what we find, but how we choose to use that information." Before the conversation could escalate, Alex Turner entered the room with an air of confidence. He was the submarine engineer responsible for the new technology that promised to revolutionize marine exploration. His smile was wide and contagious, but there was an unspoken competition in the air. "Guys, I present to you the Poseidon, our new submersible," he announced, gesturing to a miniature model he had brought. "With it, we'll be able to dive deeper than ever before. Atlantis will have no secrets from us." Kyle approached the model, admiring its sleek lines. "This is impressive, Alex. But who's going to lead the expedition? We need a clear plan." "I'm the engineer here, Kyle. I should lead the technical side of the expedition." "You can focus on the legends and myths," Alex replied, the confidence in his voice almost challenging. "Of course I can handle that, Alex," Kyle retorted, his voice rising slightly. "The expedition is about more than just technology. We need someone who understands the magnitude of what we're searching for." Rebecca, sensing the growing tension, decided to intervene. "Let's come together. Each of us has an important role to play. If we fight over who leads, we might end up losing ourselves before we even start." Kyle and Alex exchanged glances, both reluctant to yield. But deep down, each knew that the expedition wasn't just about them. It was about the possibility of discovering a lost world, a legacy that could change the course of human history. "All right, let's work together then," Kyle finally agreed, extending his hand to Alex. "But that means we need to trust each other." Alex looked at the outstretched hand and, after a brief moment of hesitation, shook it firmly. "Let's do this. Together." Rebecca smiled, feeling that despite the tension, there was hope that by joining forces, they could not only discover Atlantis but also learn the importance of teamwork and friendship. After all, the real adventure was just beginning. The team of explorers finally settled into the interior of the submersible Poseidon. The atmosphere was charged with expectation as the cabin lit up with the soft glow of the control panels. Kyle Johnson, his eyes fixed on the screen showing the depth they were at, felt his heart race. "We're approaching the least explored areas of the ocean. This is where we might find the first traces of Atlantis," he commented, his voice full of determination. Rebecca Adams, sitting next to him, looked at him with a mix of admiration and concern. "Kyle, we can't forget that the ocean floor is also a place of unknown dangers. The beauty of the environment can be deceiving," she said, her fingers nervously playing with one of the artifacts they had brought on board. "I know, But the possibility of discovering the truth behind the legend is worth all the risks, Kyle replied, not taking his eyes off the screen. Alex Turner, the submarine engineer, chimed in with a confident smile. And with the technology I've developed, the Poseidon is more than ready for any challenge. We're going to make history. As they descended further, the sunlight began to fade, giving way to a world of shadows and mysteries. The beauty of the marine environment enveloped them. Colorful fish swam around, vibrant corals stretched like underwater gardens, but soon the group's attention was drawn to something darker. Strange sea creatures with large, glowing eyes began to approach the submersible. Kyle frowned, explorer instincts on high alert. "It seems we're not alone down here," he murmured. "We should stay calm," Alex said, adjusting the submersible's controls. "These creatures could be harmless, but we can't take any chances. Let's keep descending." However, the tension in the air was palpable. As the Poseidon ventured deeper, Kyle, in an impulsive move, decided to explore a bit more. He looked out the window and noticed something shining on the ocean floor. "Wait! What is that?" He pointed, excitement evident in his voice. Alex steered the submersible in that direction, and soon they came across an ancient artifact lodged in a rock, covered in algae. "It's an artifact!" Kyle exclaimed as the submersible's light illuminated the object. "We need to bring it on board." Rebecca watched in fascination as Kyle used the Poseidon's robotic arms to carefully extract the artifact from the rock. As soon as he touched it, a pulsating glow emanated from the object, illuminating the cabin with a mystical light. "Incredible! What do you think this is?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "I don't know, but it seems charged with energy," Kyle replied, looking at Rebecca and then at Alex, who appeared skeptical. "Is it safe to bring it? What if it's a trap?" "We need to study it more closely," Kyle insisted, his determination growing. "We can't let this opportunity slip away." Back on the surface, the team gathered around the artifact, now resting on the analysis table of the Poseidon. The inscriptions adorning its surface were in a language no one there recognized, but the beauty of the forms was undeniable. "Rebecca, can you try to decipher this?" Kyle asked, hopeful. "I'll do my best," she replied, grabbing a notebook and beginning to jot down the inscriptions. "These marks seem to be of Atlantean origin. If they're really what I think, they could contain information about the lost city." Alex, observing from afar, crossed his arms, a skeptical look on his face. "What if this is just a piece from some ancient shipwreck? We can't let ourselves be carried away by emotion." "You're so focused on logic that you're forgetting that history is often stranger than fiction," Rebecca shot back, not hiding her frustration. "We need to believe we're one step away from something incredible." Kyle, sensing the growing tension between the two, intervened. "Let's focus on what's important. We have an artifact that could change everything. We need to work together to understand what it means." Thus, as the research progressed, the rivalry between Kyle and Alex intensified, while Rebecca tried to mediate the tension. The quest for the truth about Atlantis was just beginning, and what lay ahead promised to be as challenging as it was fascinating. The team decided to take a break on a small island that rose like an oasis amidst the immense waves of the ocean. The location was covered in lush vegetation and surrounded by crystal clear waters, but the beauty was not enough to calm the growing tension among the group members. Kyle, Rebecca, and Alex gathered in a small clearing where the artifact, now shrouded in mystery, rested on an improvised table made of logs. Rebecca, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm, leaned over the object, her delicate hands caressing the inscriptions that covered its surface. "These marks. They are unique. I believe they can reveal a lot about Atlantis and its legacy," she said, her voice filled with excitement. Kyle, who was standing beside her, watched her with a mix of admiration and concern. "But what if we're tampering with something we shouldn't? If these inscriptions refer to rituals, we can't just ignore the consequences," he replied, his expression serious. Alex, who had been silent until then, interrupted with a skeptical tone. "What if all of this is just a fable? We can't let ourselves be carried away by legends. We need concrete proof, not stories." Rebecca raised her head, staring at Alex with a challenging look. "You can't just dismiss all of this. This is an artifact that could change our understanding of the Atlantean civilization. Don't you think that's worth it? Her voice overflowed with passion as the gentle wind played with her hair. It's worth it, yes, but not if it puts us in danger, Alex retorted, crossing his arms. We have to be cautious. Atlantis is not just a story, it's an unknown territory full of risks. Kyle looked at both of them, realizing that the tension was about to explode. Maybe, before we continue, we should focus on deciphering what's written here. If there really is a ritual, we need to understand its meanings before making any decisions. The discussion was heated, but the stress of the situation was soon interrupted. Suddenly, a group of mercenaries, hooded and armed, emerged from the shadows of the trees, with threatening looks and weapons at the ready. The air grew heavy, and Kyle's heart raced. We can't let them take the artifact, he shouted, quickly positioning himself between the mercenaries and Rebecca. Alex, realizing the gravity of the situation, pulled a device from his backpack. I can create a distraction. We need time to escape. He activated the strobe light, which began flashing, creating a disorienting effect. It was enough to confuse the attackers for a few seconds. Rebecca, stay behind me, Kyle ordered as he prepared to face the mercenaries. The confrontation was inevitable. The mercenaries charged, and an intense fight ensued. Kyle fought with determination while Rebecca struggled to stay safe but couldn't just watch. She grabbed a stone from the ground and threw it at one of the attackers. Watch out! Alex shouted, trying to use the device to create a temporary barrier. He was anguished for not being as useful as he wanted, and the rivalry with Kyle only grew as the situation intensified. We need to move. We can't stay here. The fight unfolded rapidly, and adrenaline surged through everyone's veins. Kyle stood out by landing a solid blow on one of the mercenaries, but Alex also managed to take down another using his engineering skills, improvising a trick with the tools he had. The tension between them seemed momentarily forgotten, uniting them in a common goal. When they finally managed to repel the mercenaries and move away from the site, the sense of relief was fleeting, but distrust still lingered in the air. I don't trust them, Alex said, looking at where the attackers had disappeared. We need to prepare for the next attack. Rebecca, still breathless and with her heart racing, responded, we need to continue the research. What we found here could be the key to everything. The determination in her voice was undeniable, but unease about the group's safety grew. Kyle nodded, but his mind was racing. We need to focus and figure out what these inscriptions really mean. If the secret organization is after us, we have to be more careful than ever, he concluded, his gaze firm. As the group prepared to move forward, the tension among them remained present, but the urgency of the situation seemed to unite their fates in a race against time. They had much to lose, and the true battle was just beginning. The team of explorers descended slowly into the depths of the ocean, the submersible Poseidon illuminating the path with its intense beams of light. Kyle Johnson, with his eyes fixed on the control screen, couldn't contain his excitement. Look at this, he exclaimed, pointing at a coral formation that stretched like a vibrant carpet around them. We're about to discover something incredible. Rebecca Adams, lost in her thoughts, observed the marine environment through the window. It's truly impressive, she said, her voice filled with admiration. But we must remember that this beauty hides many dangers. Atlantis didn't fall for no reason. Alex Turner, who was operating the controls of the submersible, turned to Rebecca with an ironic smile. You're starting to sound like a true priestess of the past. Let's focus on exploration, not warnings. What matters is that we're here to uncover the truth. The tension in the air was palpable, but the beauty of the marine environment seemed to ease the mood a bit. Colorful fish danced around, while some stranger marine creatures moved curiously in the shadows. However, the tranquility was soon interrupted. As they descended deeper, the lights of the Poseidon revealed a colossal structure that stood on the ocean floor, covered in corals and algae. It's incredible, Kyle said, his voice filled with reverence. This must be part of the sunken city. Rebecca couldn't help but feel a chill in her stomach as she looked at the structure. We need to be cautious. We don't know what might be lurking here. This is part of the adventure. Alex replied, his hand steady on the controls. We just need to be careful. He then adjusted the position of the submersible to approach the structure, his eyes shining with the anticipation of a monumental discovery. When they were just a few meters from the entrance of a cave, something moved quickly in the shadows. A massive shadow approached the submersible, making everyone's hearts race. What was that? Rebecca asked, nervously looking at the others. Calm down, it might just be a big fish, Kyle said, although his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. Before they could think of a response, a colossal marine creature emerged, its eyes fixed on the Poseidon. I don't think that's an ordinary fish, Alex commented, his tone tense. We need to get out of here. The submersible started to shake, and with a quick movement, Alex activated the emergency motors. But before he could pull away, Kyle spotted something shining between the rocks. Wait! Look at that! He couldn't resist and leaned in to take a closer look. It's an artifact. We can't take risks, Kyle. Rebecca shouted, but he had already activated the hatch, preparing to exit. I'll grab it, just a second. Kyle replied, determined. With a risky push, he exited the hatch, holding tightly to a rope attached to the submersible. The creature was approaching rapidly, but Kyle's curiosity was stronger. With agile hands, he bent down and retrieved the object, a disc-shaped artifact covered in enigmatic inscriptions. As soon as he pulled it out, the artifact emitted a pulsating glow, illuminating the water around him. We did it, he shouted, but the triumph was quickly overshadowed by the creature's approach, which seemed attracted to the light of the object. Come back, Kyle. Now! Alex yelled, his voice rising above the noise of the water. Kyle, sensing the danger, quickly turned and swam back to the submersible, clutching the artifact tightly. Get in, he exclaimed as the creature drew closer. Alex and Rebecca hurried inside, and as soon as everyone was aboard, Alex shut the hatch and activated the motors. The Poseidon shot upward, narrowly escaping the creature's grasp. Back at the surface, they were all panting, but the adrenaline of the adventure kept them alert. You're crazy, Rebecca exclaimed, but there was a glimmer of admiration in her eyes. If it weren't for you, we'd be in trouble. Kyle smiled, holding the artifact in his hands. It was worth it, wasn't it? Look at this. He was radiant, but Alex, still wearing a skeptical expression, crossed his arms. We need to analyze this carefully. I don't know if it's safe, he said, his voice grave. We can't let excitement blind us. Rebecca looked at both of them, sensing the rising tension. Let's study the artifact together. We have to work as a team if we want to discover what it really means. I agree, Kyle replied, but a shadow of doubt passed over his eyes. Let's take a look before something worse happens. As the group examined the artifact, the feeling that they were just beginning to touch the depths of Atlantean history lingered in the air, like a mystery that still needed to be unraveled. The team of explorers, now in a secret chamber at the bottom of the sea, breathed in the heavy atmosphere of a glorious yet tragic past. The walls were adorned with paintings that seemed to come to life under the flickering lights of the submersible. The figures depicted danced in an eternal cycle of rise and fall, a testament to the greatness of Atlantis and its king. Rebecca, with wide eyes and a trembling voice filled with emotion, approached one of the representations. Look! This painting, it's the king! She pointed to the image of a majestic man adorned with a crown that shone as if made of light. These inscriptions around him, they speak of ancestral rituals, of a power that can be awakened. It's as if he's waiting for us. Kyle, admiring this scene with a mix of reverence and skepticism, furrowed his brow. Do you really believe we can awaken him? And what if that means bringing back a civilization that destroyed itself through its own ambition? It's not just about ambition, Kyle, interjected Alex, who was examining one of the walls with a critical eye. Atlantis was a place of knowledge and power. What was lost with its fall might be the key to our future. Rebecca turned to Alex, realizing the firmness in his voice. Do you also believe that awakening the king can help us stop the secret organization? We need to understand what he represents. If we can perform the ritual, we can restore Atlantis, not just in terms of power, but also as a symbol of hope. Kyle took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision that loomed ahead. But what if the ritual requires a sacrifice? What are we willing to lose? We need to be ready for anything, Alex replied, his gaze determined. If the legend is true, the king's power might be our only chance to prevent Atlantis from falling into the wrong hands. Rebecca, sensing the urgency of the situation, began to decipher the inscriptions fervently. Here, this passage speaks of a sacrifice that must be made with a pure heart. This could be the key to awakening him. If we can gather the necessary energy, we can invoke the king. Kyle felt the weight of those words, the idea of a sacrifice echoing in his mind. What if this sacrifice is more than just symbolism? What if it really means losing someone we love? Rebecca hesitated, her expression softening. We cannot let fear stop us from acting. Each of us has a role to play, and together we can do this. The conversation became a whirlwind of ideas and concerns, but deep down, they all knew that time was running out. The pressure from the secret organization was closing in, and the responsibility to protect the Atlantean legacy weighed heavily on them. Then let's prepare, Kyle said, finally deciding. If we're going to do this, we need to unite. We need to know exactly what we're facing and be ready for anything. Rebecca nodded, a glimmer of determination in her eyes. We'll do this together. No matter what happens, I trust you. Alex smiled, the tension in his body easing a little. So it's decided. Let's uncover the secrets of Atlantis, and if necessary, we're ready to fight for it. With a new sense of purpose, the trio began to prepare, their voices echoing in the chamber as they dedicated themselves to deciphering the mysteries of the past and preparing for the ritual that could change everyone's fate. The weight of history was upon them, but together, they were ready to face whatever came. The atmosphere in the ritual chamber was tense, the walls adorned with inscriptions and paintings that told the story of Atlantis, but now they were not just relics of the past, they were a burden on the consciences of Kyle, Rebecca, and Alex. The three were at an impasse, and the division in their wills was becoming increasingly evident. Kyle, with his gaze fixed on the inscriptions, said, Rebecca, do you really think we should go ahead with this? Sacrificing someone to awaken a king? It's a dangerous choice. Rebecca, her voice firm, replied, Kyle, it's not just about a sacrifice. It's about restoring a civilization that was once grand. If we can awaken the king, he might help us stop the secret organization from using this power for evil. Alex, who had been silent until then, finally intervened. But at what cost? What if this ritual doesn't work? What if the king isn't what you expect? We might be opening a Pandora's box. He gestured, exasperated. We need to find a way out before we become part of a tragic legend. Rebecca looked at Alex, realizing the concern in his eyes. I understand your point, Alex, but we're here. We have the chance to do something incredible. We need to take the risk. Kyle, frustrated, stepped back a bit, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. What if we reach a point of no return? What if the secret organization is already on our tail? He turned, his gaze fixed on Rebecca. Do you really believe we can control what's to come? At that moment, a loud noise echoed in the chamber, causing the trio to fall silent instantly. Alex, already on alert, whispered, What was that? Rebecca looked around, her heart racing. It could be the organization. We need to prepare. Alex quickly moved away, heading toward the entrance of the chamber. I'll see if I can hear anything. We can't be caught off guard. As Alex moved away, Kyle approached Rebecca in a protective gesture. You need to stay behind me. If they're close, we can't take risks. The tension hung in the air, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead left them uneasy. Alex crept outside the chamber, his heart pounding. He knew the chances of being detected were high, and the thought of the secret organization closing in on them made him nervous. However, as he moved stealthily, Alex spotted figures moving in the darkness. He realized that the mercenaries were approaching the chamber, and a chill in his stomach told him he needed to warn the others. Rebecca. Kyle, he whispered, but his voice lacked the urgency needed. You need to prepare. They're coming. Fortunately, the communication was not entirely in vain. Kyle and Rebecca heard Alex's whispers and quickly prepared. Kyle turned to Rebecca, determined. We need to hide. We can't let them catch us off guard. Rebecca nodded, her gaze fixed on the entrance. Let's find a safe place and come up with a plan. We can't let them ruin everything. The three regrouped and adrenaline coursed through their veins. Alex, still panting, said, They're getting closer. We need to act now. If they find the artifact or the ritual, everything will be lost. The tension intensified, and the urgency of the moment made Kyle take the lead. Let's stick together and use what we have. If the organization wants the king and the artifact, let's show them we're not weak. The plan was underway, but uncertainty still loomed over them. What would happen if the organization caught up with them? Alex's words echoed in Kyle's mind. Every decision they made led them down a point of no return, and he knew time was running out. The ritual chamber was enveloped in tense silence, broken only by the soft sound of bubbles rising to the surface. Kyle and Rebecca, now united by a common purpose, prepared to face the imminent threat approaching. The atmosphere was charged with expectation and fear. Alex, a bit apart, looked at the two, feeling the pressure of his role in the team. He knew time was running out and that the secret organization would soon invade the location. We need to prepare, Kyle, Rebecca said, her eyes fixed on the shadows dancing on the walls of the chamber. If they arrive before we complete the ritual, everything will be lost. I know, but we can't rush it. We need to have a plan, Kyle replied, his serious tone reflecting the gravity of the situation. He looked around, assessing every corner of the chamber, searching for an advantage they could use. Meanwhile, Alex, restless, began to fiddle with one of his devices. If I can activate the force field of the submersible, we can create a temporary barrier. That would give us a few more minutes, he said, his voice filled with determination. That might work, but what if they have explosives? Kyle countered, his concern evident. We need to be ready for anything. Then let's split up. While you guys prepare for the ritual, I'll handle the defense, Alex suggested, already starting to move away. No. We can't separate now. We need you here, Alex. What if something happens? Rebecca exclaimed, worried. I'll be fine. I trust that you two can handle this, Alex replied, a resolute look on his face. And if you need me, I'll be just a few minutes away. Rebecca felt a knot form in her stomach. The tension between the two men was palpable, and the idea of separating felt dangerous. She looked at Kyle, seeking support. Kyle, we need him. He's part of the team. That's true, but we can't risk losing anyone else, Kyle argued, his voice firm. We need to stick together. Then let's make it quick, Alex said, deciding not to insist any further. I'll activate the device. As soon as I do, you two will have to focus on the ritual. The tension mounted with each passing second. Alex stepped away and began working on his equipment, while Kyle and Rebecca positioned themselves at the altar. The atmosphere was heavy, and the silence grew oppressive. The only light came from a supernatural glow emanating from the artifact they had found. Are you ready, Rebecca? Kyle asked, a hint of concern in his voice. Yes, but I'm nervous, she admitted, taking a deep breath. If what I read is correct, this could be more dangerous than we imagined. We need to believe in what we're doing. It's our only chance to save her, Kyle said, his determination unwavering. Suddenly, a deafening noise echoed through the chamber, making everyone turn. The mercenaries from the secret organization had arrived. The door was smashed open with force, and shadows loomed in the entrance. Alex looked back, his eyes wide. Quick! They're here, he shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. Kyle immediately positioned himself in front of Rebecca, ready to fight. I won't let them touch you, he declared, feeling a surge of adrenaline coursing through his body. Rebecca, her heart racing, grabbed one of the ceramic objects from the altar, ready to use it as a weapon. Let's do this together, she exclaimed. The first wave of mercenaries stormed into the chamber, and the fight began. Kyle lunged at the first attacker, landing a solid punch. The man fell, but more mercenaries appeared, and the battle intensified. Rebecca, using her agility, dodged a strike and hit another mercenary with the object she held. "We need more time." "Alex," Kyle shouted as he blocked an attack. "I'm almost there," Alex replied, focused on activating his device. He could feel the pressure building, but he couldn't give up. Just a few more seconds. The fight continued, with Kyle and Rebecca moving in perfect sync. Each blow and movement was executed with precision, but the number of mercenaries seemed infinite. In a moment of distraction, one of the attackers managed to hit Rebecca, causing her to stumble and nearly fall. "Rebecca!" Kyle shouted, his heart racing. He launched himself toward her, delivering a powerful strike to the man who had attacked her. "I'm fine, Kyle. Just a scratch." Rebecca responded, but her expression betrayed her. Alex finally managed to activate the device, and a force field began to form. "Now! Protect yourselves," he shouted as the barrier rose around them. The pressure inside the chamber increased, and the mercenaries turned, realizing they were losing the battle. Kyle and Rebecca seized the opportunity to position themselves. "Come on, we need to finish this," Kyle said, his gaze determined. As the fight intensified, Alex realized he needed to do something more to ensure everyone's safety. He looked around the chamber, seeing the energy and potential of the ritual they were about to perform. Determination grew within him. He couldn't let Rebecca's sacrifice be in vain. The environment in the secret chamber pulsed with a strange and powerful energy. The three friends gathered in a circle around the altar where the artifact shone intensely, as if awaiting a command. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the sound of air bubbles and the faint clinking of chains hanging from the algae-covered coral walls. Rebecca, her eyes fixed on the artifact, took a deep breath. "This is the moment we've been waiting for. If we can perform the ritual correctly, we might really awaken the King of Atlantis," she said, her voice steady, but with a slight tremor of anxiety. Kyle nodded, feeling the gravity of the situation. "We need to do this before the secret organization gets here. We can't let them get their hands on this power." He looked at Alex, who was focused on checking the devices he had brought. "Alex, are you ready to protect us? We need you on high alert." Alex looked up, his expression determined. "I'm always ready. But, Kyle, you need to understand that this ritual, it could have consequences we can't foresee. What if the king isn't what we expect? What if he doesn't want to be awakened?" Rebecca, sensing the growing tension between the two, intervened. "We need to focus on what's in front of us. The king is the key to restoring Atlantis and protecting its history. If we don't try, the secret organization will destroy everything." She looked from one to the other, seeking support in their expressions. "We need to trust each other." Kyle ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I trust you, Rebecca. It's your research that brought us here. But Alex, we need you to trust too. Without your technology, we're at a disadvantage." Alex sighed, realizing that despite his reservations, the urgency of the situation required unity. "All right. Let's do this. But if something goes wrong, we need a backup plan." The trio organized themselves, each taking a position around the altar. Rebecca began to chant words she had deciphered from the inscriptions, her voice echoing through the chamber like an ancient song. The air thick with water and salt seemed to vibrate around her, and a blue glow began to emanate from the artifact. "This is incredible," Kyle exclaimed, watching the artifact pulsate in sync with Rebecca's words. "It's working." However, as the energy increased, the sounds in the chamber began to change. A distant noise, like a deep roar, reverberated through the walls. Alex looked around, his engineer instincts kicking in. "We need to speed this up. I feel like we're not alone here." Rebecca continued to chant, focused, but she felt the pressure mounting. "Almost there, just a little more." But the pressure of the water, the weight of the moment, and the imminent threat of the secret organization made everything even more intense. Kyle's eyes widened as he noticed a shadow moving in the depths of the chamber. "Rebecca, stay alert. There could be intruders. Don't stop, shouted Alex as he adjusted a device on his wrist, ready to activate a defense. We're too close to give up now. The chamber began to vibrate, and the drawings on the walls seemed to come to life, telling a story of past glories. The artifact's glow intensified, illuminating the space with a bluish light that danced on the walls as if awakening a dormant power. I'm feeling something, Rebecca shouted, her voice resonating with a mix of fear and hope. It's like the king is responding. Kyle, now completely absorbed in the energy surrounding them, turned to Alex. Get ready. If they come, we have to protect Rebecca at all costs. I'm ready, Alex replied, his gaze fixed on the entrance of the chamber, where the daylight was slowly fading. Let's do this. With one last cry of determination, Rebecca finished the ritual, her voice echoing in the chamber as the energy exploded in a whirlwind of light. The atmosphere was charged, and everyone knew that the fate of Atlantis depended on that moment. The tension in the air was palpable as the chamber vibrated with the energy of the ritual. The pulsating light emanated from the artifact Rebecca had deciphered, illuminating the determined faces of Kyle and Alex, who prepared for the final confrontation. As the mercenaries of the secret organization invaded the chamber, the situation turned chaotic. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed against the submerged walls, mingling with the murmuring of the sea surrounding the ancient city of Atlantis. They're coming, Alex shouted, tightening his grip around a lever on his device. The submarine engineer quickly glanced at his friends, realizing the seriousness of the situation. We need to protect Rebecca at all costs. Kyle, muscles tense and gaze focused, nodded. I'll take care of her. You need to keep an eye on the chamber and make sure the ritual isn't interrupted. Rebecca, standing before the altar, felt the energy of the place pulse in tune with her heart. She was focused, but the presence of the mercenaries made her hesitate. Kyle, I can't stop now. If we interrupt the ritual, everything will be lost. The king needs us. We'll face this together. Kyle replied, his voice firm, but his heart raced. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, not only for Atlantis, but also for Rebecca's life. The chamber door swung open with a crash, and the mercenaries, armed and determined, flooded the space. Capture the artifact, ordered one of the leaders, with a smug smile. And don't let anyone leave alive. Without a second thought, Kyle lunged forward, blocking the path of one of the mercenaries. You won't lay a hand on her. He punched the man with all his might, sending him crashing to the ground. Alex, in turn, quickly activated the device he had created, forming a barrier of light around the chamber. This should buy us some time, he shouted, focusing on maintaining the energy of the barrier. Rebecca, however, couldn't allow herself to be distracted. With a firm voice, she began to chant the words of the ritual she had deciphered. Oh, great king of Atlantis, hear our call, awaken from your eternal slumber. The mercenaries tried to advance, but Alex's barrier momentarily held them back. Kyle continued fighting, throwing punches and kicks, but the number of enemies seemed endless. Alex, we need more power. Increase the intensity of the barrier, he shouted, dodging an attack. Alex, concentrated, replied, I'm doing what I can. But I don't know how long I can sustain this. With each passing second, the battle grew more intense. Kyle and Alex moved in sync, fighting side by side, but the threatening presence of the mercenaries surrounded them. Rebecca, immersed in her ritual, felt the energy of the place intensifying. I need more time, she exclaimed, but her focus was disrupted when a mercenary approached dangerously. Rebecca! Kyle shouted, realizing one of the enemies was getting close to her. He turned quickly, but before he could run to her, he saw her lunge at the mercenary, trying to disarm him. No, he yelled, but it was too late. The mercenary, in a swift motion, pushed Rebecca back, causing her to fall and injure herself severely. Rebecca! Kyle shouted, his voice now filled with despair. He rushed towards her, but the fury in his heart drove him to confront the mercenaries with even more ferocity. You will pay for this. He unleashed punches and kicks, each blow carrying his anger and concern. Alex, seeing what was happening, felt a wave of despair. Kyle, We need to finish the ritual, he shouted, but Kyle just shook his head. I can't leave her like this, Kyle muttered, trying to protect Rebecca, who lay on the ground, pale and struggling to breathe. Rebecca, with one last effort, looked at Kyle and said, "You need to continue. Don't give up on me." Her voice was weak, but there was determination in her eyes. Fueled by the situation, Kyle felt an uncontrollable strength rise within him. He turned to the mercenaries and, with renewed determination, shouted, "You won't succeed. I fight for Atlantis and for Rebecca." He charged with an energy that felt almost supernatural. As Kyle fought, the connection between him and Rebecca grew stronger. Alex, realizing that the energy of the chamber was intensifying, decided to take a risk. He activated his device with all his might, creating a wave of energy that pushed the mercenaries back. "Now, Kyle, do this for Rebecca," Alex shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. With a primal scream, Kyle launched himself to protect Rebecca, determined to save the woman who had awakened not only his passion but also his fighting spirit. It was a moment of truth, where their union became the most powerful force they could have. The chamber pulsed with vibrant energy, a deep blue glow emanating from the ancient stone walls. Kyle, heart racing, looked at Rebecca, who lay prostrate on the ground, her breathing weak and irregular. The weight of the situation crushed him. He couldn't lose the woman who had become not only his expedition partner but also the only one who truly understood his quest for Atlantis. "Rebecca, no! Please, don't leave me!" Kyle pleaded, his voice choked with emotion. He knelt beside her, holding her hands, which now felt so cold. I can't do this without you. We need your knowledge." Meanwhile, Alex watched, his heart pounding out of rhythm. He had gone from a rival to an ally, and seeing Rebecca in such a state made him realize how much she meant to all of them. The weight of the responsibility to save her fell upon him. "Kyle, we need to act. The ritual, perhaps we can still summon the king. He may help us." Kyle's eyes lifted, meeting Alex's, and for a moment, the rivalry between them seemed to evaporate. "Do you really think he will hear us? That he will care about what we're going through?" Kyle was overwhelmed by despair, but Alex's determination began to ignite a small flame of hope in his heart. "He needs to know we are here, that we are doing this for Atlantis and for Rebecca," Alex replied, his voice steady. "If there's any chance, we have to try." Kyle hesitated, but the image of Rebecca, fragile and on the brink of death, pushed him forward. He stood up, deciding he had nothing to lose. "King of Atlantis, hear our cry. We are here, and we need you." His voice echoed through the chamber, reverberating against the stone walls, and a sepulchral silence fell. The energy surged, and the air around them began to vibrate. Kyle looked around, the anticipation making his stomach churn. He felt an ancient, powerful presence, and a shadow began to form in the center of the chamber. The ethereal image of a majestic man, dressed in royal attire, appeared before them. The king of Atlantis, with a gaze that mixed wisdom and power, contemplated the scene. "Who calls me?" His voice was like distant thunder, reverberating through the chamber. "Why should I heed your summons? King, we need your help. The city, your people, are in danger. And the woman who seeks to restore your history is gravely injured," Kyle implored, the sincerity in his tone echoing in the chamber. The king looked at Rebecca, his expression shifting to one of compassion. "She carries the weight of her people in her heart. Her sacrifice is great. What are you willing to give to save her?" Kyle felt his heart tighten. "I would give my life. I would do anything to save her. And you, young engineer? What do you offer?" The king turned to Alex, who felt small under the deity's gaze. I offer my loyalty and my life, if necessary," Alex replied, his voice trembling but determined. "But above all, I offer my friendship. We are not just explorers, we are a team. And together, we can restore Atlantis." The king assessed the two men, and then, looking again at Rebecca, he extended his hand. "The true strength of Atlantis does not lie in its power, but in the unity of its people. If you truly wish to restore this civilization, you must be willing to sacrifice for the greater good. The energy in the chamber pulsed intensely, and a bright light began to surround Rebecca. Kyle and Alex watched, both awestruck and terrified at the same time. The light intensified until everything around them disappeared, and a profound silence enveloped the environment. When the light finally dissipated, Rebecca began to open her eyes. "Kyle," she said, her voice weak but filled with life. "What happened? You're alive. The king, he saved you." Kyle exclaimed, tears of relief streaming down his face. He embraced her tightly, feeling her warmth return. Alex looked around, the chamber now illuminated with a new glow, as if Atlantis itself were being reborn. "Look," he pointed, and they all turned to the walls, which were now lit with visions of Atlantis' glorious past. "You have become the guardians of our history," the king's voice resonated, clearer than before. "Protect the legacy of Atlantis, and never forget that true strength lies in friendship and unity. The past must be honored, but the future is in your hands." With those words, the image of the king began to slowly fade, while the chamber pulsed with new life. Kyle, Rebecca, and Alex, now united by a shared destiny, knew that the true adventure was just beginning. They exchanged glances, smiles of hope and determination on their faces, ready to face whatever the future held for them, together as friends and protectors of Atlantis' lost history. Good night and enchanted dreams.